I'm now going to demonstrate the functionality of the pillared model number 2 circa 1877 time lock. Starting here with this center dial, it's denoted in 48 hours. So this will rotate once every 48 hours. Now there are two small detents here, one here and one here, and those engage the bolt dog to release the bolt and to slide the bolt to the left and allow the bolt dog to fall, and thus allowing the bolt work to go into the case and one to be able to dial in the correct combination and open the vault door. Now this can be set two basic ways, and that is where you have both of these detents at the same location, in which case this will be released only once every 48 hours. Not a very likely scenario, but you can move this and slide it around to where it locks, and then you have a detent on the opposite side of the wheel. So you have one here and one here. Now what that does is it allows this to actuate, to release this bolt work once every 24 hours. Now that makes a lot of sense because you usually are going to want to open every 24 hours. So really what we have here is a mechanism which allows one to introduce a skipped day for Sundays. Obviously this lock didn't anticipate long weekends, and back in 1877, heck, who had a weekend back in 1877? Everybody worked 6 days a week. So now we will demonstrate the lock in its basic function mode, and that is where it is controlled by this central dial only. So what one needs to do, and I need to indicate now that the cover is removed. There's normally a cover here, and that cover would be holding this bolt dog against the case so it doesn't flop around. So it's not exactly operational the way that it will be when it's completely assembled. But I wanted to show how all of this mechanism worked by leaving that decorative cover off. So what the owner wants to do is to set the lock on guard. One, it's now off guard, so you have your bolt work able to enter the case. So before you want to leave the office, you want to pull this upward and push this over to where this now is locked. This now blocks the bolt work from going through the case, and then you just simply shut the vault door and go home. Now in 12 hours, this will turn because it's being driven by the pair of clockwork here. And we'll slide this bolt to the left and allow this to drop. Now let's say that the owner has decided that he would like to open his office, say 3 hours later than normal. Well, right now you have this set for a 12-hour or a 24-hour opening once every day. You have this rear detent here which never moves. This is driven once every 48 hours by the clockwork. This detent, however, is movable by the front dial. So what one has to do is move this front dial all the way over, and right now it is aligned with the rear detent, which means it would open only once every 48 hours. And then he has to calculate how many hours he wants prior to the regular amount of hours that it would open. So he has to count the number of hours here, so that he says, well, let's say I want to open 3 hours later. Well, then he has to count this to where this would be about 3 hours from 48 hours. That would be about 44 hours. So that's, excuse me, if he wants to open, say, 4 hours, so that's 44 hours. And then this is set to where he can now, again, move this over, and he's ready to go. So this will now open 4 hours later. Now let's say the owner wants to work late. This is where these two dials come in. Let's say he has this set for the regular 12-hour interval, which is what we have it set for now. And he says, you know, I'd like to work an extra 4 hours tonight. Well, what he does is he takes this bolt dog and he moves it all the way up to where it engages this retractable piece here, which we showed in a prior video. And then sets this, and then sets each of these to, say, 4 hours here and here. Now, one must remember that these are running at the same time as all the rest of the clockwork. So now he is working a little extra time, and so this is remaining open, even though this has now been set to, under normal circumstances, would be set for the dog to be on guard. What this arrangement allows the owner to do is to not have to remember after 4 hours to set this time lock. Automatically in 4 hours, this will move 4 hours ahead. And let me do this where it doesn't block the view. And this then is allowed to drop, and it is blocking the bolt work. Now, of course, since these are both connected, this one would also be running at the same time. Now, I'd like to comment on the design of this lock a little bit. There is a slide bolt here, which has a fair amount of sliding friction where it is sliding through the case here as well as here, and also the weight of the bolt dog on top of this sliding bolt. So when this is turning, when the clockwork is needing to turn this dial, I can feel that there is a fair amount of, here it now pulls this upward to release the slide bolt, and there is quite a bit of push that's necessary to retract this backwards. It is certainly a far more, it requires a lot more power from the time lock movement to actuate the bolt work releasing this bolt dog than, say, the drop bolt that is used in the S&G movement, which was contemporary to this at the time. The other problem with the use of this is that the owner would have to memorize how many hours he wanted to subtract or how many hours he wanted to add in order to change the standard 48 or more likely 24-hour function of the main dial. Whereas on a Sargent and Greenleaf or a Yale of its contemporaries, it was very intuitive as to how many hours one needed to set on the lock when one desired it to open, say, in 8 hours or 12 hours or 24 hours, or however those locks were programmed.